Well, hello, Juniata. It is really my pleasure to welcome you to this plenary session to officially launch our 19th Liberal Arts Symposium, which, as you know, started at 8 o'clock this morning. I am so very pleased that about 300 students are participating in LAS this year. So give those students a round of applause. For those of you who may not know me, my name's Lauren Bowen, and I've worked as the provost at Juniata for the last decade and have had the opportunity to be able to partner with lots of wonderful people to organize LAS. This particular semester, I've stepped back a little bit and am serving in a slightly different role. And for those of you who know me well, you may know that what that's meant is I had to let go of some things. And I am very happy to report, not that I didn't know this, but it still was hard for me, that LAS has gone just fabulously without me. And as all the students know who have presented, this doesn't happen all by itself. And certainly the student presenters know and understand that getting to this day has taken a while. It's been a long time coming because you get a partner, not only with each other, but with some really fabulous, wonderful faculty mentors. So let's acknowledge and thank your faculty. And there's been an awesome planning team, as there is every year. And so I want to just pause and thank Heather Bumbarger, Allie Sones, Tracy White, Beth McNearlin, and Justine Black for their leadership today. And as we were talking about how to plan LAS, we thought it made sense for us to be able to gather as a collective, as a community, to feel the energy. You feel it in every presentation, every session that you attend, but there's something, I think, about coming together in Alumni Hall to really celebrate and honor all that LAS is in terms of understanding student achievement, student scholarship, student discernment, and all the good work that you've done. And so when you gather as a plenary, as a collective, it's important, I think, to hear a message. And as we were thinking about who best to deliver that message, one of your faculty who can, I think, speak to the power of scholarship, to insatiable curiosity, to the life of the mind over an entire career in ways that will resonate. It's also especially poignant, I think, to acknowledge that 19 years ago, of course, this doesn't happen by itself, and it took a team of faculty, but Jack Barlow was one of the visionaries that helped launch Liberal Arts Symposium. And in this semester, when we also, tomorrow night, will honor and recognize Jack as he prepares to retire from full-time service, we thought it especially powerful for you to be able to hear from the Charles A. Dana, professor of politics, who earned his bachelor's degree at Carleton College and went on to earn his graduate degrees at the Claremont School, and then went on to work doing a variety of things, but near and dear to me, worked for the Bicentennial Commission of the U.S. Constitution. If you have your pocket constitutions with you, I trust you will ask Jack for an autograph after he speaks, working with Chief Justice Warren Burger, and then coming to Juniata College in 1991 to share his experience, his wisdom with all of us for the last Jack, I can't even do the arithmetic, 33 years. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Dr. Jack Barlow.
That's better. Thank you, Lauren. That was a very kind introduction. But I do want to start with a disclaimer. First of all, I did not write the Constitution, so me signing it is meaningless. And second of all, there was not a whole lot that was original in the proposal for LAS when we proposed it. Several departments had research days. The biggest one was actually run by Tri Beta, the Biology Honorary Society. And but there were a number of them, and it started to get confusing and so forth. And David Sowell proposed that we merge the different research presentations into a single day. And he asked me to sign on, and so I did. But he wrote the memo. I just signed it. So I don't want to give too much credit, and to me, and I don't want to take too much credit, and I want to give a lot of credit to David for his vision in starting this whole thing. I've always found this room intimidating. I've been teaching in this room for 30 years, off and on, and so if I get flustered, you know why. All right, here's what I have ready, and I'll read it, and you decide if you think it's any good or not. Liberal Arts Symposium is designed to be a demonstration and a celebration of the creativity of Juniata students. It's important enough that we set aside a full day and we cancel classes. That's the celebration part. And we have research papers and jazz concerts and art installations, and that's the demonstration. Our creativity takes many forms. But what is it? Well, John Cleese of Monty Python fame gave a speech about creativity about 30 years ago. And in that speech, he drew, among other things, on the work of a UCLA psychologist, Donald McKinnon, who studied creativity in the early 60s. What McKinnon found was that people who were regarded by their peers as the most creative were not different from their peers in most ways. There were no differences in training or intellect, no differences in IQ, for example. What was different was what Cleese calls their way of operating. As he said, it's not an ability that you either have or don't have. What was different was their ability to play. And this is a quote from John Cleese. Indeed, McKinnon described the most creative as being childlike. For they were able to play with their ideas, to explore them, not for any immediate practical purposes, but just for enjoyment. Play for its own sake. That's the end of the quote. So this is me now. Now there's a funny thing about play, because we're trained not to do it. We're trained to treat it as a distraction. Don't play with your food. Don't play with matches. Don't be loud at the table. Don't throw things, right? Sit up and behave and ignore everything but your task. We're trained to ignore anything that is not useful or statistically average or mainstream. As Angus Fletcher tells us, we are trained to ignore the exceptional and focus on the average. That is to say, we're taught to exclude outliers. And that's what we think school is for. A recent talk by Angus Fletcher here at Juniata highlights this. He says, quote, "Unfortunately, the natural ability to recognize exceptional information is trained out of us in school today. In school, children are taught instead to think like computers. So children gradually lose their ability to spot exceptional information. By fourth grade, most children have lost so much of that ability that they've become measurably less creative. And by the time those students graduate from college, they notice less than 1% of the exceptional information in their environment. That leaves students unable to be as creative as they were when they were younger, and unable to react as swiftly to change. It makes them less resilient. It makes them more fragile." End of quote. We faculty are taught in graduate school that excluding the exceptional is an important part of teaching. We should focus our classes on the what is statistically regular, I can't say that fast, what has worked in the past, what a majority of people in our discipline think. Exceptional information is disruptive to what we think we know, which means that which means what we know is things that occur with statistical frequency. As Fletcher notes, this is what computers do. We become experts at categorization, and we teach our students to categorize rather than take their own fresh look at the data. After all, if it had worked, somebody would have done it, right? So, we train students to be respectable members of the adults table, the grown-ups table. But that takes time and repetition. Learning to ignore the irregular means learning to ignore signals that are in our primitive brains, right, might mean danger, or ignoring questions that might lead to success. Education means making students less original. We separate the kids' table from the adult table because we don't expect children to behave in the ways that adults find regular. We expect children to run around and yell, to be childlike, right? While adults should be adult-like, sit quietly and behave, right? Like you all are doing right now, right? Sitting at the adult table to a child is punishment because you have to behave like an adult. And who wants to do that? Or, as we say more simply, behave. Sitting at the kids' table is a lot more fun. I know this because I have 4 grandchildren, and there's a kids' table, and that's the threat, right? If you don't stop throwing that, you're going to have to come sit with the grown-ups and not throw things. So as long as the grown-ups don't know what the kids are doing, right? Children can be noisy or throw stuff or get up and run around the table. Adults are not allowed to do that, or at least most of the time will not do that. It's been trained out of us. We become professors, right? I mean, becoming a college professor is a product of training all of the originality out of us. I'm doing this for a long time. Tell me, we learn not to ask questions that fall outside of certain parameters, or are socially unacceptable, or weird, right? We're trained to be mainstream members of our disciplinary fraternities and not push the boundaries of what is considered acceptable inquiry. And this is where the childlike part of creativity comes in, and where LAS honestly gives me some hope. Kids don't know what has been done. They don't know what's worked. They haven't done a lit review, right? They want to find out for themselves. They're happy to move fast and try something and then move on to something else. And if something gets broken in the process, well, so what, right? That's the price of discovery. Aristotle says, you knew that was going to have to come to that, right? Aristotle says that philosophy begins with the sense of wonder, a childlike contemplation of what appears, at first sight, to be difficult to explain. How do we find an explanation, right? How, in Aristotle's time, do we picture the sun going around the earth or the planets moving in the heavens? Why do things change? How do things change? And why do some of the changes in things seem to present regularities? But we've moved on from, as Aristotle predicted, from simpler to more complicated questions. LAS is something that gives us the hope and permission to ask those questions and to seek answers. But there is more, because we also set this day aside to remind ourselves that the questions and the process of questioning are more important than the answers. The questions remain even when the answers are discarded as outmoded or wrong. Learning how to frame a question well is the first step in figuring out how to answer it. We now explain the motions of the planets and the sun quite differently than Aristotle did, right? We now know, for example, that the Earth goes around the sun. I don't know if you caught that earlier, but I did say the sun goes around the Earth. More research, even more questions, more wonder, more play, right, may yet make us change our minds about even something as fundamental as that. It's happened before, why not? That we would ask those questions, that we would play, is the best thing that can happen at a liberal arts college like Juniata. We hope you will be excited, that you have gotten excited about framing and asking questions, because we hope you will become disruptors in the best and most productive way, right? We hope your questions will lead your generation forward, which is another way of saying we hope you'll throw stuff at the table. So that's my first point. I only have 2. That's my first point to students. Pursue your questions even if other people think it is wrong or foolish or childish or weird to do so. You're here, and we're celebrating you because you've asked questions, because you've pushed boundaries, and you've thought and challenged us to think in new and different ways about the world. My second point is related. Listen. Talk to people who disagree with you. Hear what they have to say. Some of you may know that the Nobel Prize-winning economist, Daniel Kahneman, died last month. And he's remembered as a practitioner of what he called adversarial collaboration. This type of collaboration means that you find someone who has questioned or challenged your approach or your findings, and you convince them to work with you to investigate the truth, right? We've come to opposite results. We can't both be right. So let's find out what's actually going on. This too is childlike behavior. We often see children, frequently siblings, who will argue until someone is in tears. My own kids were like this. Any two of them could get along for an extended period of time. But you put all three of them together, somebody's in tears in moments, right? Only somebody's in tears, and they turn around and they go and cooperate with each other and find some other game or some other thing to do. Children get over it, right? Adults hold grudges. They turn their backs, or they simply withdraw. Children are much more resilient. In my discipline of political science, perhaps the outstanding example of adversarial collaboration is the United States Constitution. The Philadelphia Convention created a system of three separate branches of government, each with its own will, but jointly responsible to the people for governing the country, and most importantly, unable to act separately. The framers knew that there were fundamentally opposing ideas about how the nation was to be governed. Slavery is the most obvious example there. And yet they created a system in which people had to work together to create common solutions, to listen to others, and to compromise. Previous political theory had led to structures where people did not have to listen to each other. One side, or more frequently one class, would win, right, and simply ignore everybody else. These theorists were preoccupied with outcomes rather than procedures. And of course, that worked very well until it didn't, right? Look at the French Revolution. The Constitutional Convention's solution was to focus instead on procedures and design a system that was flexible, that could change with the times, and that would, not always easily or quickly, reflect public opinion. Most of all, it reflected compromise and bargaining. It required adversarial collaboration. Of course, what it did was create an endlessly frustrating political system in which no one ever won a complete victory or won all the time. That's annoying, right? But that's what we've got, and that's what we should be focused on. Okay, so listening to your opponents, well, that sounds like adult behavior, grown-up behavior, doesn't it? Which is to say, it sounds boring, right? After all, why would you want to listen to people who are clearly wrong? But in fact, listening to those who disagree is not statistically typical adult behavior. Most grown-ups don't listen. They've closed their minds. Just look at American politics today. We no longer have that sense of adversarial collaboration. We're all at the adult table, but no one is talking to anybody else. We've turned our backs on each other. That this is not a good situation is agreed on almost all sides. But how do ears and minds become open? That's the contemporary challenge for a creative thinker. How do we get beyond a politics that's based on algorithms? So this is my second point. Don't close your mind. Second and last point, right? So we're coming close to the end here, folks. Be open to those who disagree. Talk with them and see how, together, you can work to increase everyone's knowledge. Often when you work with people who have arrived at a different answer than you have, you discover that they care about the issue or problem just as much as you do. That's what Daniel Kahneman discovered. That's something you can build on to make discoveries happen. That's what happens when you let your sense of wonder, and in this case, a sense of shared wonder, lead you to new questions. So keeping that sense of wonder is essential to preserving your childlike openness to new and interesting information. Get distracted by it. Be ready to go down a few rabbit holes, right? But keep at it. You may start pursuing some question and completely lose track of what time it is, what day it is, right? What your name is, whatever, right? But if you enjoy your work, it will never feel like work. Juniata's mission is to prepare you to lead interesting and useful lives. I've never known what that means, but there we are. You guys can find out. I didn't go here, so I don't have to lead a useful life. Right. But an interesting and useful life should mean a life that brings satisfaction through your accomplishments, whatever they are. But it could also mean, and maybe should also mean, a life of disruption. So the famous William von Liebig was a student here. As you know, you all know him from the portrait, right, over if not, you can go over there, not at night, not after dark. Von Liebig had a passion and a talent for biology. He was a bio major here. Family circumstances led him to leave Juniata and finish his education at the Philadelphia College of Textiles. And he went into the textile industry. His family owned what was then the silk mill down here by Memories, then sold it. So he went into the textile industry, but he never forgot his love of biology. And after World War II, he became aware of a need for artificial blood vessels in medicine. And he thought, why not use fabric? Nobody had ever thought about that before. And so he designed a fabric that could be used to replace blood vessels. And he built it into a billion-dollar company. He designed a creative and profitable solution to a vexing problem. But notice his question. Why not? Right? Why do we do it this way and not that way? Why are we looking here and not there? That's the disruption. That's childhood, right? That's throwing stuff at the table, and that's what von Liebig was doing. So LAS is our invitation to you to do the same thing, to ask new questions. So ask them. Challenge the old answers. Challenge us old guys, right? To look at things. I'm not in the, I've lost most of my hair since that portrait. Right? Challenge us to look at things in new ways. Unleash your sense of wonder. Unleash your sense of why not. That will lead you to look at information in a new way and to be as creative as you can be. So I hope that your participation in LAS has helped you discover your inner life. Has helped you to discover your inner child, or at least raise the possibility that you will act in such a way that someday someone will threaten to punish you by sending you to the Grownups table. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Hi, everyone. My name is Justine Black. I'm one of the members of the LES Planning Committee and also the director of the Staten Learning Commons. On behalf of the committee, we want to express a heartfelt gratitude to Jack Barlow for his inspiring speech. Jack, your insights and passions have left a mark on us all. I'd like to take a moment to also extend thanks to our education administrative assistants, Tracy White, Ali Sones, and Heather Bumbarger, for their dedication and hard work around LAS. Tracy, Ali, and Heather began preparations for LAS over the summer, and they continue through the academic year. And this year, they took on the very special task of also onboarding myself and Beth McNerlin in coordination of this incredible Juniata tradition. Beth and I are so thankful for their guidance and patience and opportunity to learn under their mentorship. I'd also like to extend a thanks to the Provost Office, the Print Shop, Marketing, Information Technology Services, Conferences and Events, Facilities, Parkhurst, the Juniata College Museum of Art, the Staten Learning Commons team, and all the faculty and staff sponsors that make this day possible. Without everyone's attention to detail, creativity, and steadfast commitment to ensure that this day is an absolute beautiful celebration of our students' achievements. As shown by Dr. Barlow, Juniata College has a rich history and support of political engagement. And this dates back to Martin Grove Brumbaugh, who served as Juniata's president for 2 terms, but also led Pennsylvania through the First World War as governor, championing the values of Juniata College wherever he went. If you're interested in learning more through the words of an alum and emeriti faculty member, please feel free to stop by and grab yourself a copy of Earl Kaler's book on Martin Grove Brumbaugh, located in our lobby. While you're there, please make sure you also pick up the newest Juniata College tradition sticker from our marketing department. After the plenary, I hope that you'll join us for lunch in Baker. Special sessions will begin at 1 and continue at 3 and at 4. And the poster session will be nestled in the middle from 2 to 3 in the Staten Learning Commons. We look forward to engaging and playing with you all today. Have a great day.